All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Tia from Geek Vibes Nation, and I am interviewing the cast and director for the upcoming movie Dig, releasing in theaters and video on demand September 23rd. I have with me Thomas Jane, Harlow Jane, and director Asher Levin. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you
Awesome.
guys for being here. um, I,
Pleasure.
I love that Thomas is taking a pull of his jewel pen. I think I just saw an article saying that those were banned somewhere.
Keep
um,
going.
so I want to first start this by going over to Asher and asking, how was it for you? Like, what was the inspiration behind directing Dig?
We were in post production on another project that I had just done with Thomas, and my producing partner Daniel had been working on this for a little bit, and had brought Thomas in already. And Thomas, Thomas had brought in Harlow after she auditioned, and the chance to work with Thomas again, sounded really fun. And Harlow, such an incredible young talent. I took a look at the script and had some ideas about how we could make it sort of elevate it to something that was really special. The core of the movie that really talked to me was this idea of a sort of family drama by way of a sort of 1970s style crime thriller. And what I liked very much about it was that the heart of a father and daughter who are torn by trauma and then are ultimately brought together by trauma again, and sort of the trials of life. And I think that was the core of it. And then just figuring out how we could make something that was unique. Myself, I share with Thomas specifically a love for noir, a love for sorry, that's my dog. A love for great new Hollywood independent filmmaking that was sort of based around genre filmmaking, and so this felt very akin with that style. My dog is being very loud. Anyway, so that's my answer on that, I suppose.
Yeah, and also don't worry, I have a dog and I'm surprised she's not barking at this moment. Thomas, I do want to move over to you. What what kind of mind frame were you in while acting in Dig?
Well, on the one hand, we're looking at father-daughter relationship that, I look over and there she is. Normally it's just another actor that I don't really know and talk to at the craft service table. This is Harlow. So that made it challenging and also unique, that we had a chance to sort of make a record of a little bit of our real relationship on film. That's not an opportunity that you get very often, and I don't know if we'll ever get it again. But it turned out to be super rewarding, Harlow, and so that's one half. The other half, out of the corner of my eye, I'm always looking at my daughter and just kind of marveling. It's like, wow, this chick is a real actor. She's a damn actor. It's so cool. So I spent a lot of time not hanging out in my trailer. I spent as much time on set and just to watch her and watch her work and watch this, try to absorb, soak in this experience, this sort of once in a lifetime thing that we captured on film.
Harlow, how does it make you feel hearing all of this?
I mean, it's rewarding, and I think that obviously having like two powerhouses of talent as your parents is a little daunting. And it gives you a lot to live up to. But I think that, the most that I could ever hope for is like to make my parents proud of me as just like a person and an artist. So obviously hearing that is the greatest compliment, I think. And it's also the knowing that like he cherishes me and what I do or want to do so much is beautiful and it's so nice to know.
It's nice because like it's such a beautiful sentiment right now that we're getting in the interview, and in the movie it's so intense, your guys' relationship.
Mm.
And one of the aspects of the movie is that your character Harlow is deaf. And I did.
Well, technically hearing impaired,
Right.
just to,
Yeah.
you
She's
know,
hard of
to
hearing, but yes.
she has she is after the traumatic, very traumatic and pretty hard to watch opening section of the film. She loses her hearing by I believe 90% after a gunshot is grazed by her ear.
Right. And so with that, Harlow, what kind of like research did you do? Like what did you take into account when taking on a character like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, it was really important to remember like that not only did she, lose her parent, she lost one of, or mostly lost one of her core senses that she had growing up for almost all of her life, you know? It's something you're born and, you hear your parents talk and your friends laugh and your parents teach it, so it's another layer of isolation for her. And then for me it was kind of about being really internally aware, because once that sense is sort of cut off, you have no way. I mean, you can't even listen to music, so you're really listening to yourself and your thoughts all the time. And with the ASL, it was definitely a challenge to sort of learn the signs, but it's such a beautiful language. um but as someone who is kind of not ambidextrous and is quite limly, I am very uncoordinated. So that was a huge challenge, but it was also important for me to try to get right and be realistic about when working with my coach. And we had to change some of the dialogue in order to be realistic to someone who has only really been learning ASL for maybe half a year,
Right.
if even that, and the newness of that for her.
And so Thomas, just piggybacking on that, like what did you keep in mind while, playing opposite your daughter who's playing a character who is hearing impaired?
Yeah, the part of the challenge of this character is that every time he looks at her and can't communicate with his daughter, he's reminded of what he did, that it's his fault, that he's responsible for his daughter, being the way she is right now. And that's something that is hard to take on board. So there's even the character Brennan. He even has resistance to learning the ASL, is it, I say it right?
Mhm.
Even to communicate with her, he's got trouble even learning that, because there's a resistance to the whole it's not quite denial, but it's denial. And that added a pretty neat layer, it kind of
Yeah, you really tracked that. I just wanted to sort of jump in here and say that one of the great things about Thomas that a lot of people don't realize is he really does come from a sort of old school actor's place with performance, with a lot of education. And so tracking when his character would finally embrace the sign language that he has actually learned, and revealing that he has been doing the research and the studying, but has been unwilling to realize as a person, that didn't want to admit that his daughter, needed it. It's the most poignant moment in the movie. Sorry, you guys continue. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, it amplifies the relationship that you have, that any father has with a daughter or a son. that's a teenager, it amplifies that relationship, right? Because it's literally like kids feel like you don't understand a damn thing I'm saying, and so we were able to physicalize that and kind of really play with that time in people's lives when they really butt heads with your old man. So that made it fun.
And that's certainly an aspect that, unfortunately, for people who are hearing impaired, they do have family members who are resistant to learning ASL to communicate with them. So that is a good layer to include in this, this really serious movie. Asher, I wanted to ask so you said like already the beginning of the movie is very intense, but what would you say was the hardest filming day during this process?
To be honest, this film was actually pretty easy to film for me. I inherently kind of knew all the moves because these are the type of movies that I love the most and grew up watching. So, we shot it in 14 days, I think, on a ranch. And we were all family. It was a pretty tight, during COVID, and it was everyone was really locked in. I think we all really understood what the movie was. I wouldn't say that there were particularly any hard days. I will say there was a very funny story. The day that we did the gas station sequence, and this is a really testament to Thomas. The whole movie, he had crafted a character that was sort of we talked about it sort of as a sort of aging lion, who unwilling and unable to protect his cub, and then awakening. And it was very important for Thomas to have that character be wounded for so much of the film. And then we have this beginning, and we never really talked about what the beginning was going to look like. And we do this very, very, probably the most intense scene in the movie, aside from a couple of others later on. And we get there. It's late. We've been shooting all night. We show up at this gas station. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and Thomas is like a different person, legitimately a different person. He's all amped up and sweating and wild, and I don't know what the fuck is going on with him. And we had the guy who was playing the other fella, who was actually our stunt coordinator, who was playing, the guy who brings out the gun. We talk through the scene, and then Thomas starts doing it, and we're all behind the camera, and we're like, has Thomas had a mental break? Because he's so jacked up, and it's so intense. But I didn't cut. We taped the whole scene, and afterwards I walked up and I said, "Hey, what the fuck is going on, man?" And he goes, "What are you talking about? This is who I'm supposed to be right now. This is the scene, man. This is when I make my metamorphosis and my great error, and then you see me a totally different way." And I'd say, I wouldn't say that was the most difficult scene. I would say that was really fun and rewarding, because watching process is the most exciting thing as a director, and learning from actors and understanding that the script and even your shot list might be more of a roadmap. And when the actors take the steering wheel, really magical things can happen. So I will say, instead of it saying it was hard, we shot it in a short amount of time. I will say that there are some pretty incredible moments that evoked from this production specifically.
That's
right
awesome.
On. Yeah, it was hard. It was important that this guy have a flaw, that it was his fault, that he instigated some shit to go down that shouldn't have happened. He wasn't an innocent bystander. He was responsible, and he lost his shit. He's already pissed off because his daughter skipped out and snuck out and went away to some goofy party where everybody's drinking and smoking dope. And now, somebody's maybe not endangers his family, and he takes it out on this guy. And it was important for him to carry that weight, so that we knew, the audience knows, like, this dude fucked up, the blame is on him. And he may not be wanted to take responsibility for that, but the audience should know, yeah, dude, you fucked up. So
And
that was fun.
so, Thomas, I know that you've done a lot of projects since your time as playing the Punisher, but the audience that is going to be watching this from, like my outlet, is going to freak out seeing, Thomas Jane just in like the title of this video. Um, would would you say that playing these type of characters where it's like the family man who, is just realizes he messes up and wants to, now seek retribution essentially for, his family. Is that something that like really resonates with you when you're picking these roles?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. There is a similarity between Frank Castle and what happens to him and his family and this one. There is I am attracted to roles that challenge a person's identity, and you either get crushed by an event or you're transformed by an event. And that this does have, this is a thriller. It's fun to watch. There's blood. There's, Emile Hirsch is fantastic in this thing. So but at its heart, it's a little thriller. And watching, like Asher said, like the end of marrying the independent spirit of doing movies about people, but giving it a genre glaze is something that I'm really attracted to. I really love that. I love genre movies. A lot of them are just too light in the head to be interesting. So I'm always looking for ones that accomplish both, a little meat. I like a little meat with my bone.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to go over to Harlow because when you play this character, right? Like now that you've played this character, this intense thriller and everything, like as an actress, what are you taking away from this role that will help you in the future for other projects?
To me, I kind of consider this my first real role where, I've gone to school at this point and I kind of knew a little bit of what I was doing. Not much, but a little bit. And I think that just, I mean, it was the perfect thing for the perfect time. And it taught me so many great lessons. And are there things that I would do differently now that I'm a little bit more seasoned? Barely. Sure. But I think that's kind of the beauty of it. And especially with Emile, I keep coming back to this today, but especially with Emile, he is someone who works so on the fly, he is so creative, so present, and that really makes you kind of have to be present and stay present and listening and watching as the actor so that you're reacting to him in a way that is realistic and makes sense. And that was a great gift, just to be around Emile and watch him work,
Yeah.
and have that
Yeah.
sort of guidance.
Yeah, we were blessed by four incredible performers, and I tell everybody that the strength of this movie, people liking the film, is really about the actors. And Emile and Thomas, Harlow and Liana all have different styles, but I do believe that it started with Thomas coming with a passion, and then Emile coming out with a passion, and then obviously Harlow and Liana realized they had to raise their game for this particular project, and then to a certain extent myself too, in terms of letting the actors breathe. I think that it's a lost art to make, and Thomas, you talked about this a little bit, to make films about criminal elements and actually care more about the performance than some of the action stuff. And I think that those are the movies that are everlasting and evergreen. It's great to have a bunch of fun pieces. We have some really great set pieces in this film for the size of the movie, but I don't think that any of them would really matter if we didn't have really incredible character scenes in the film. I point out to Harlow here, Harlow and Liana have a really, really amazing scene in the bathroom that people point out.
Pretty great.
Is very charged. And the performances on both sides. Harlow is being self-effacing here. Her performance was amazing. So whether or not that was natural instinct or not, she understood everywhere to go. And then there's one particular moment in the movie, is my favorite moment, between Thomas and Harlow, that you couldn't even try to rehearse. There's a straight bullet, and Harlow runs back to Thomas, and they embrace. And I don't care. I've said this before. I could do another interview. You could be the greatest director in the world, and if it wasn't two people that actually knew each other that intimately, I don't think you'd ever be able to get that performance. Yeah, it's really special.
That was special. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were blessed to be able to have those moments, and get them on film.
Yep, absolutely.
I think the collective opinion here, Harlow, is that you definitely have a really wonderful career ahead of you. I can already tell from Asher and Thomas that they're hyping you up here, and I love to see that.
We only hope.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
I know that I have limited time left, and I just want to kind of capsulate this by asking Asher. So the movie comes out both in theaters and video on demand. Why do you think that, if you do, why do you think people should go to the theater to see Dig as opposed to waiting to get it on video on demand?
Well, first of all, check your cities. If it's not there, then you should be downloading it when it comes up at 9 p.m. on on iTunes or Amazon on September 22nd, and or the next day when you wake up at September 23rd. It's a movie that has a beautiful expanse in the location of Las Cruces where we shot. We shot it with a nod towards the classic landscapes of Terrence Malick, and before him, John Ford, with regards to the landscape that we had. And there are a handful of pretty dynamic set pieces within the film that really look good on a larger screen. Specifically, there's a scene with an inspector that really hums when you're watching it in a dark place. Going to a movie theater is magical. I started taking my son when he was 3. Even in the middle of COVID, we were the first ones back. And it's a shame that there's not more movies that are in movie theaters. But I think I went to a screening once of Blue Velvet. David Lynch was at. And David said before the screening, he said, they said, "What do you want to say anything before?" And he said, very sort of elliptically, he said, "The lights go down and the curtain opens and magic begins." And I do believe that. I think in cinema that that is something people forget about quite a bit, that you're in a quiet place. You don't have your phone. It's so hard for us to live without our technology. You don't have your phone. You don't have access. The sound is different, and you're invited into a world. It's very. My dog agrees, by the way. So I'll leave it at that. There's a difference between television and film, and that's the difference. Is you're invited to our world, and so for a few hours you can disappear and live a little bit of a wilder life, a little scarier life.
Absolutely. Well, again, I want to thank, first of all, Thomas, sorry for getting on you before about your jewel. It was perfectly fine. I feel bad now. It's like, oh boy, what a way to start the interview.
You can get on my jewel anytime you want.
So really quick before I wrap everything up, Thomas, Harlow, I want to ask really quick what other projects you have that you want to promote for people who are watching this. Thomas, I'll start with you.
I did a really cool movie called Crown Vic, and reuniting with Joel Souza, the director of that movie. We're going to do this movie called The Alternate, which again is sort of an old school kind of a 70s character actor thriller kind of movie. I do tend to like those films. I'm excited about that.
It'll be coming out in a month, Thomas.
Oh, our first movie.
Our first one.
Our first
it was a layup question. You could have just said, yeah, we have it for all the Punisher fans out there, for real. We have a really crazy fucked up vampire movie that it's the first time Thomas and I work together. And Thomas plays a vampire slayer like no other. And
with a huge beard.
Yeah.
Massive beard.
And for fans of that, I would say you'll enjoy at least the second half of the film specifically, as a lot of juju of what people have wanted to see Thomas do for quite a while.
Yeah.
Nice.
A lot of fun.
And Harlow, what about you? Any upcoming projects?
I just wrapped on a Rebecca Miller movie called She Came to Me that is super fun, and the cast is like the most incredible group of people you'll ever see. These people are amazing. And I just worked on a show with my mom called High Desert. So I'm getting it on my family. So, yeah. I figure I'll get it over with.
Yeah, do it while you can. Do it while you can.
Listen, if I were in your position, I would be too. So.
I'm taking advantage of it.
Nice. Well, Asher, Thomas, Harlow, thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. Again, everyone, Dig comes out September 23rd. Make sure you check it out. It looks phenomenal. And again, guys, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.